Welcome to this segment of Reaching Out. Joining us is our very special guest and good friend, Patrick Lynch of the PBA. Patrick, welcome to Reaching Out.
I appreciate it. It's always good to be on with you.
Thank you. You joined us recently at the headquarters of Local 237, and you spoke to some of the tenant leaders from NYCHA, public housing, and it turns out that many residents of public housing and many Local 237 members who work in the developments actually share some of the same concerns about safety as your members and police officers. Can you tell us about some of those?
We do. What we found out when we had that dialogue the other day is that what we're both finding, whether it's the tenants group, the patrol groups, and New York City police officers, is that there's a closed door at City Hall. There's no dialogue going. He talks a good game, but he manages in a completely different style, which means to shut everyone off rather than have a dialogue to solve problems for the city. So we were able to sit down and see that there's so many things that we agree on. And one of the concerns we have is that if New York City police officers aren't feeling safe when we're in those complexes, patrolling the stairwells, lobbies, and the grassy areas, and then the workers, your members, don't feel safe to be able to go in there and do the work, then how do the residents feel? And that's what's important. So what we found out is we're all on the same page on those issues, and we also find that City Hall is easy and quick to blame everybody else why it's happening. Blame the police officers when tragedies happen. Blame the workers in your organization if something doesn't get done quickly. It's either to say, well, 237 members didn't get it done. Meanwhile, they're not talking about how long it takes for them to get assigned those jobs from management in the first place. And all these things point to the residents, the people we serve, quite frankly, the residents not feeling safe, not being able to come down and sit on the benches in front of their buildings, feeling unsafe, going into darkened hallways or stairwells. Why? Because the elevators aren't working. They don't have a choice. So if we're not safe, they're not safe, your workers can't get that job done because they're not safe, then we're all in sad shape, and City Hall has to answer that.
Now, you mentioned that your police officers do not feel safe. 2 police officers were shot in the stairwell coming down one of the housing developments, and at the beginning of the year, 1 police officer was killed right in the midst of the housing projects.
That's absolutely right.
I believe Police Officer Holder was his name.
That's right. And it happens time and time again where our police officers go out to do the job, and unfortunately they don't go home at the end of the day working in those same complexes. So I think it's important that we start focusing on why. Why are the stairwells darkened? It's not the residents' fault. It's not your members' fault. It's the fault it takes so long to get those things fixed. What happens when those kind of situations are let go? Tragedies happen. Quite frankly, tragedies happen where our members are killed in terrible violence. Sometimes accidents happen, as we've seen in NYCHA, where we lost a life. A police officer's life is changed irreparably. So these things need to be addressed. They need to be fixed. We can't ignore them. City Hall is managing as if they put out a press release and then never follow up and do the work. Look, we want to do the work. So we thought it's important that the residents, your members, my members, sit down, have a dialogue. Where can we work together and have, rather than separate voices, have one strong voice?
Now, you mentioned Kai Gurley, an unfortunate incident, shooting at the pink houses. I saw the testimony and I heard from other city council people, and I also read in the paper and several editorial columns. That light was not out. It was actually a ballast that needed to be changed. The stairway was darkened, and it was darkened for months, and all those work orders disappeared. But I mean, if one, they need tamper-proof lights, because if you put a bulb up, somebody's going to break the bulb. But to blame that tragedy on a dark stairwell because workers went home at 4:30 was just not the case.
It's crazy to say, well, it's because a bulb was out, when you know it was more complicated than that. When did the work order come down? Your members will know this better than I would. To get assigned to do that job, why did it take so long? And why was Akai made go into that hallway to go downstairs in a place that he lives? And why was a police officer put in a position where it's dark, you don't see what's ahead of you, there may be garbage on the stairs, it's dark because the lights are out? What happens from there? A terrible tragedy, a loss of life, a changed life for the police officers, and then City Hall blaming everybody but themselves, and they're the ones that are responsible for taking a system. The question I always ask is this: why can a complex that's privately owned get it done, and then a complex that's owned by NYCHA not get it done? The workers are there. They want to do it. They want to have pride in the work they do. They don't want to be blamed for a system they have no control in. It's the policymakers. It's the policymakers at City Hall should take the blame and sit down and really fix the problem, not start pointing fingers at your members, not start pointing fingers at my members. Let's get to the root of the problem, solve the problem. I know both our organizations are willing to do that. Is City Hall willing? I'm not so sure.
You're listening to Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, President Local 237 Teamsters. With me is the President of the PBA, Police Benevolent Association, Patrick Lynch. And we're here talking about crime, housing authority, and collaboration between Local 237, Teamsters, the PBA, and the residents of NYCHA. We actually had two members killed. Tony Jackson, who was killed in 2015, and an elevator mechanic helper that was killed just recently, within the last 6 weeks. So we've also had loss of life in the housing authority. And, you know, we have these suggestions, but the housing authority, I don't think they take the pragmatic approach. We fell behind 4 years ago in our work, and we haven't caught up since. And it's been managed by press release after press release after press release, blaming the employees, blaming everything else. Now they come up with the flex op, and everything seems to be thrown in the way, but the problem is not being addressed.
It is, and let's talk about the safety issue for all, the residents, the workers, the police officers. Why is that happening? Why do we hear that there's a spike? You know, at one time in this city, we had enough police officers to be able to effectively do the job. And we really changed things. We brought a renaissance to so many neighborhoods and the entire city. Why? Because we knew where the crime was. We were held responsible for reducing that crime, and we had the staffing to do it. You know, we're the only police department since September 11th that is downsized. We're 7,000 police officers short. So what does that mean? We don't have the police officers assigned to our complexes that we should, so we can continue that renaissance. So we're at a halt. We're at a point now where violence is spiking because we don't have the staffing to go into those jobs. And then it's not just our PSAs, our public service areas around the city. They're getting pulled to cover, rather than the complex, to cover the corner. Why? Because the precincts are short as well. So they're short staffing every aspect of policing, which then creates the city to say things like, well, crime is down overall, meaning they're starting to average. Remember the day when we used to say crime is down in all categories?
Yes.
That's where we should be working to go. This administration, public safety, is not a priority. It needs to become a priority. It needs to become a priority because, as you said, we had so many deaths of police officers to put shields on their chest. Unfortunately, your workers have those tragedies as well. But so does the public. So does the residents when they're in a housing complex or around the corner going to shop. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed now. We cannot slide back to the days when crime controlled every thought you have, when you go out, how you go out, and why you go out. It can't be like that. Now, I'm not suggesting it's 1992 or 1975, but we're definitely on that slide. When our members are on patrol, they feel it. They smell it in the air. How do they know that? Because the residents are telling them that. The residents are happy when they see the police officers on the corner. When they don't see the police officers, unfortunately, they stay behind locked doors. Let's not go back to those days. Let's fix it now. We have ideas and ways to do it. Number one, treat our police officers like professionals. Pay our police officers like professionals and staff them. You're holding us responsible as professional police officers. Well, start treating us that way. Start treating the public with respect. This administration likes talking about the dialogue and a respectful dialogue. Well, it's not a respectful dialogue to just talk about it and then say, go behind your locked doors. We're not giving you more cops on the corner. We need to solve this problem before more people die, before it gets worse. And more importantly than that, that renaissance that's now halted starts sliding back.
First came the chaos in the street, then came the chaos in the prisons. The only thing left is the chaos in schools if they take metal detectors out.
Absolutely right.
And then we have a breakdown in society.
Then you certainly do. And you have to ask yourself, why did they put the metal detectors and staff up your department in the first place? Why? There was a problem in the schools. If there's a problem in the schools and the hallways are chaotic, the students aren't going to learn. If the students aren't going to learn, it really has an effect on all of society, not just that day, but on into the future, right. Because you lose a generation of folks that didn't learn, not because of their own fault. Kids want to go into a safe environment. So if you take those metal detectors out, you don't give the staffing to your organization so you can do the job, what happens? The halls become chaotic again. So you can look at it every way. You can break the schools from bigger schools to smaller schools. You can put them in different neighborhoods. You can change the rules. If you're not safe, none of that makes a difference.
Thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this segment of Reaching Out. This is very good. We got to have you come back because we have a lot in common, and we've been working together, and we're going to continue our relationship and work together. And who knows, we may get the average citizen to want to come sit in on some meetings and give their opinion.
Love to do it. If City Hall won't change the city for the better, I think we can do it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, brother.